Hi, Charles.
Hey, Nicolette. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for saying yes to be interviewed today. For those listening, I'd like to, and also to you, Charles, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again, the juxtaposition of your very soul. Yes, I would like to say thank you for finally we're here. We had to reschedule a few times, but now we're here. Thanks to
Mhm.
technology. I'd like to read a bit of your introduction for our listeners today, and then we can get right into our conversation. So, hey everyone, we have Charles Gerenser
Great.
with
Perfect.
us here. Mr. Gerenser is a partner at Relentless Venture Studio, focused on sales initiatives, new business acquisitions, and exits. He is also founder of a number of current Relentless portfolio companies, including linkvanow.com, which is a full service managed LinkedIn lead generation system, which allows its clients to focus on opportunity creation and closes, whilst its virtual assistant team focuses on running the system and harvesting the leads themselves. It is a reasonably priced full service option that has seen tremendous growth in adoption since it was launched in 2022. His background includes serving as Chief Revenue Officer and Executive General Manager at SMS Masterminds, contributing to its successful sale to a major private equity group. Mr. Kerenser graduated cum laude from the Anderson School of Business at the University of California at Riverside. A native of Bronx, New York, he lives in San Luis Obispo, California with his wife and two daughters.
Yes,
Wow. Welcome, Charles. Welcome.
that's me in a nutshell.
I love it. I love it. So, Charles, tell us first off, what was it like growing up as Charles Gerenser?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you again, Nicolette, for having me. But the last name, it's kind of funny because, I mean, it's not the most difficult last name to pronounce. I've seen many more with more consonants and more syllables. But because my name has a C and an S, people really do
Yeah.
pick it up. And it's funny. The other day, one of my daughters was receiving an award, here in town for her community service. And the woman came up to us and who's presenting the award before the audience came in. She says, I want to get it right. Pronounce your last name for me. And I said, here it is. I got it. I got it. I got it. Okay, great. And then they get into the promotion, and then my daughter walks up and she says the name and she pauses and then totally butchers it. And so growing up as Charles Gerenser, I was always, this little bit of a lump in my throat when the teacher would say my name for the first time in classes, because they would say Charles and then they would pause and say nothing. And then I would just say present, I know that's me. Yeah. So that's one of the things that came full circle for me just the other day because my daughter got an award. So, that's one thing. That's one thing. But I grew up. I was born in New York, but my folks moved out to the Western U.S. in California when I was a baby. So pretty much a California guy. I grew up in a part of the city in the Los Angeles area that was, very much like a lower middle class neighborhood. Nothing too fancy. A good home. Good parents, good schools. So I had a lot of opportunities present themselves, even at a very young age, where my interests in business started at a very early age. And so I can really thank my earliest kind of upbringing for that. My parents encouraged me to be industrious and entrepreneurial. So I did a number of things from mowing lawns to I had my first mobile business. It was a mobile lemonade stand that I built on
The
wheels
cart.
so that I could roll it around from
Right.
corner to corner wherever the best opportunity was. And I was doing that at 8 years old. So I
Wow.
had some great ideas as a kid, and I was able to get into business for myself, and that became my earliest inclinations in business, and then had the fortunate opportunity to go to business school and then get right into business right out of college. I've been doing that now for the better part of now nearly 3 decades.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, I'd like to unpack the journey, and then we're going to do that once we get into some of the questions. So,
Hmm.
but I want to go back to the part where there is a there's a thing here. You made a sale to a major private equity group. So, how do you start the process of acquiring a business or selling a business? Is it the same or different?
Okay. So when you're on the buying side, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the world is your oyster. There are a number of really well curated marketplace sites that you can begin your search for businesses. And whether it's a technology business you want to acquire, or maybe you want to acquire a brick and mortar business, there are a number of sites here domestically in the US, also globally, that one can go and search out a business. If you're selling a business, if you're on the exit side, it's really important that your business translates to the outside world. And what I'm saying there is, it's not just we make widgets, we make them well, we sell a lot of them. Your internal organization, your SOPs, your standard operating procedures may make sense to you, but when you are looking to exit your business, it has to make sense to the buyer.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes, a lot of entrepreneurs who seek to sell their business wind up failing because too much of their business is them and not enough
Ooh.
SOPs and the processes around the business. And so when you're building the business, think about universality. So it can't just make sense to you, it has to make sense to anybody who
Mm-hmm.
might look at and evaluate this business between your accounting and finance process policies, or internal sales organization, your customer support. It has to be simple and not loaded with a lot of idiosyncrasies and dogmatic like acronyms that only make sense to you. You want to make it so that anybody could come in and evaluate your business and say, this is a good business. I want to buy it. So when you're exiting the business, the beginning of that process is to take an objective view of the business. And that can be tough, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs. So it's usually pretty helpful to consider hiring a business broker, somebody
Mm-hmm.
who will work on a performance basis. So they only get paid when you sell the business, similar to like a real estate agent.
Right.
And that broker oftentimes will be able to give you that objective feedback. Is your business tidy? Is it clear? Does it make sense to the potential buyer? Because if it doesn't, then you're going to be it's going to be a difficult position. Either you will not attract qualified buyers because they won't understand how your business is organized,
Mm-hmm.
or you get someone who's excited at the beginning and then they get into due diligence and they can't understand anything, so they drop out.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and this sometimes is the last potential friction, they want to buy your business, they acquire your business, and then they request of you a protracted transfer services agreement where you are now obligated to work for the new buyer for a period of time so that things
Transitionary period so that, yeah.
they remain the continuity of
Mm.
operation. And so the more objectively tidy the business can be, the less those things will happen. And then instead of like having a 6 month commitment to the new buyer, maybe it's a few weeks or 1 month. And that's the position you want to be in when you're exiting the business.
Now, I have a question more
Mhm.
for me because let's say, okay, about to get into the coaching space. Oh, also, this is for the listeners listening. So let's say if they have an end goal of selling their business, right? If somebody out there right now, as they're listening to this with that end goal of selling, what should they do right from the get go?
Right. So right from the get-go, there should
Mm-hmm.
be intense documentation of all of your internal processes. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say you sell a product. I mean, you want it very well
Oh, let's say a
articulated.
service. What about a
What's that?
service? A
Product or
service.
service?
Yeah.
Yeah. So even being a service, you want to make sure that your product is well defined. So you have a very clear articulation of that, whether it's in an index or some type of physical listing that might be a guide to the service. You want that to be clearly articulated so that there's no chance for misinterpretation on the part of your customers of what exactly it is you're going to deliver. So, for instance, you mentioned my business, Linked VA Now.
Yeah.
Every one of our customers is governed by a very simple 2-page contract, and the
Right.
contract delineates all the deliverables. So there's nothing
Mm.
that's vague. It's not, did I get it? Did I not get it? It's in the contract. So it's
Mm.
very clear. Oftentimes, particularly in the coaching vertical,
Yeah.
the end result can be a bit
Very
nebulous.
subjective.
What's
Yeah.
my net result? And so
Mm.
in that case, I would probably advocate that it's all about time.
Mm.
We are engaged for X amount of time, 30 days, 90 days, whatever the period may be.
Mhm.
And then in the case of coaching, because it might vary from client to client, have your clients articulate what they expect out of that period of time in writing to you, agree or disagree with the ability to deliver those goals. Once you have consensus, that goes in the contract. That way it's
Right.
time and specific deliverables, milestones, action items that are actually delivered. That way, when and if the relationship ends, because it will, the day you lose a customer is the day you sign a customer. That's just the nature of being in business where you have customers. You want an orderly exit, or you want customers leaving you saying, I need to break it off for now, but I'm going to come back. I mean, that's the general attitude you want anytime an engagement ends. You don't want it to be adversarial or people feeling they didn't get their return on investment. So I think it's very important to govern those relationships with your customers, particularly in the service arena, with a very clear articulation in the form of a contract in terms of
Mhm.
who does what and what they are responsible for in terms of each party.
Mhm. Mhm. That's the simplest way. If you're signing up if you're signing up clients and you're a new business, then get the contracts in order, get the documentation, and then file it away. If and when that goal changes, if you want to stay in that business, then stay. If you want to sell it, then it's easy for the new buyer to take over and carry on your
Yeah.
legacy or their legacy.
When you sell a business, if you have revenue coming into your business,
Yeah.
no matter how reliable it is, if you
Mm.
do not have contracts,
Mm-hmm.
the absence of written contracts or purchase orders is a serious liability and typically will drive the sale price of your business down.
Lower.
So the
Mm-hmm.
more documentation you have of that revenue, how assured is that revenue moving
Mm.
forward month to month? Very important in terms of your exit multiple. If everything is on handshakes,
Yeah.
you know, that's very difficult to exit a business like that because what is the buyer buying?
Exactly. And then also the bank statements.
Well, yeah,
Where's the money coming in?
the bank statements matter.
Yeah.
And when you get to due diligence, they're going to look at your accounting reports and they're going to do a forensic analysis of your bank statements to see that the money is as it has been stated
That's right.
your bank when they're reconciled
Mm.
against your sales reports.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. All right. I think we did touch a little bit about the gist of the next question. However, it's good to lay it out here again. What are the common pitfalls when people try to acquire and or sell business?
Yeah. I think the most common pitfalls, as we've stated here, is that there's a lack of clarity in the documentation. Like, say, for example, let's say you have 50 customers and you have a handful of customers who generally pay you late, right? Maybe they're not an automatic bill. You have to chase them around a little bit. But what are your actual policies as it relates to past due accounts? Just as a for example, if
Mhm.
you don't have that clearly articulated, let's say Invoices are due every month by the third of the month. Then you need to have the next step. If an invoice is not paid by the 10th, then an email goes out and warns them that their account may be suspended. If it's not paid by the 15th, it's suspended. No more work happens. And if it's not paid by the following third, then the account is canceled.
Mhm.
This is just, I'm just sort of hypothesizing, like this might be the way you do it, but if it's not written out in a clear SOP, in this case for past due accounts, you want to have that all very well organized. Now, many merchant processing platforms such as Square or Stripe, both very
Yeah.
popular kind of globally, they have a lot of those tools built into their system in terms of you set the business rules and then you can do an output, like a narrative output of what those rules are. But it's also,
Mm.
I think, just as easy to have just a Google Doc where all the processes are listed. I would do both.
Mm. Mm.
Revenue recognition. That's another important thing. So let's say you have a customer, you're a coach, and you charge 3,000 US a month for your services, and you have a customer come in and say, okay, I want to hire you for 6 months, but I want a deal. I'll pay you 10,000 US, but I want that for the 6 months. You
Mhm.
decide, okay, I'm willing to do that. So you take the 10,000 in, but how have you recognized that revenue? Did you pull it all in 1 month and just recognize the revenue in a single month? But you're
Mm.
delivering
Or
services
defer
for
them.
6 months?
Yeah.
You actually have to apply revenue recognition rules to that money. You
Mm.
can take the 10,000, but you can only take a sixth of it each month in revenue recognition. So when your
Mhm.
buyer looks at your books, you don't want to see one giant 10,000 one month and nothing the rest. You want to smooth
Mm.
the revenue out. And so that's a common mistake on the part of solopreneurs, smaller business owners, is they don't recognize the revenue accurately. So their
Mhm.
numbers are not, in alignment with what the business is actually doing. Because if you're having to put time into a customer but you have no revenue that month, that's a bad position to be in. So you want to
Yeah.
always have it true up with the
Mhm.
actual costs that are being incurred relative to that deliverable, that particular project.
Mm. Wow. 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 Thank you, Charles. That gave me such valuable insights because I wanted to go in the space of coaching. Now, I never thought that it was actually possible that I had to be at Apple or Google standard market cap to have, to sell it out, and it's actually possible.
Sure, sure.
It's
There, there,
actually
there, are, there are a
possible.
number of so a couple of the
Wow.
websites I want to mention.
Mm-hmm.
One, it's more popular here in the U.S. is called Biz Buy Sell, and on that site there are about 75,000 businesses for sale, and it's everything from major franchise brands that
Mm-hmm.
like buy a McDonald's. I mean, it's there.
Right.
Like a turnkey business,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the way down to like a one man, marketing company, doing around
Really.
100K in revenue and looking to exit. So Biz by Sell is a good website to browse businesses for sale. There's another one with a little bit more sophisticated upstream businesses. So these are going to be more like $1 million and up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a website called Axial, Axial. So these are sites that one can look
You're
at.
giving me so many. So it's Biz by Sale,
Yeah,
Axial. Okay.
and then
Okay.
Axial. And these two sites, you can just go on there as a potential buyer and just browse. And that's a good way as a seller to educate yourself on what does my business need to look like. And
Exactly.
you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just look at somebody else's wheel.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Wow. I love it. Revenue recognition, the common pitfalls, and then the SOPs,
Hmm.
documentation.
Huge.
Okay. I used to work in a 9 to 5, and big organizations that have all of this. But then when you pull yourself out of the system and you start your own, you kind of think always you switch it back to, okay, this is a one man show, and then you won't have all the time to figure it out because you're thinking about your customer, you're thinking about your strategy, thinking about your marketing, and then the aftercare, and then often the documentation gets put in the back burner. But
100%.
yeah, but if this is, I mean, so you have to have the trajectory of where you're going. Are you going to stay in business, or you're going to look out to sell it? So get it right from the get-go. Maybe not 100%, because people will be learning as they go,
Yes.
but at least yeah, because somehow you'll fall short. Let's say suddenly you get a sudden influx of customers, and then, oh my god, I need a team.
It's
Yeah.
true, and you want the customer to come first. So if a customer is blowing up
Yeah,
the cell phone and needs this, needs that, I mean, you want to come through for your customer, and so
that's right.
you'll forget to do the bank reconciliation that month, 'cause you're
Yeah.
busy with customers, and that's all. That's understandable, but yes, when you start to scale the company, you should have part-time bookkeeper. You should
Mm-hmm.
have part-time, a CPA who does your, tax arrangements, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to bring those people in. You can't do all that yourself,
Yeah,
even if you just have a handful of clients. I mean, you start to become, a bit more complex. And if you have
that's
any designs on exiting the business,
mm,
you're gonna need your business in a state that it can't just be you saying this is it, these are the numbers. Typically your buyer is going to want to
yeah,
see a quality of earnings report, and that's going to be a third party who says, yes, I testify that the earnings
an
are of
audit
quality.
firm.
Audited,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, audited. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But now that this brings us to the next question. So, what does a virtual assistant do? What types of services can they provide? And I guess this fits in just nicely.
Yeah, so I have a company, and so we have a venture studio out here in California. So we have a number of companies in our portfolio, but one in particular is exciting because it focuses on LinkedIn, which is a massively important business network. And so in the name of that business, it's linked VA now, VA standing for virtual assistant. So it's not AI in case of my business. It's not some, algorithm. It is an actual person, a, a member of our team that is account manages on your behalf. They're just not in the same room as you. So they're virtual, like you and I are having this virtual conversation. It's just, they might be in California or New Jersey or Kuala Lumpur. I mean, they could be
Hmm.
anywhere, really, right?
Yeah.
So that's the VA part of it. Probably a better word or a better phrase is remote assistant, because
Hmm.
they're just not they're not showing up at your office every day to turn in a report to you. So that's the VA part of that particular business for us, and that's what VA means to me. And this concept of virtual really came full force in 2020, of course, with the pandemic. I mean, my entire business, 60 employees, had to go remote and ostensibly virtual. So all of my meetings then and up to now are like this.
Yeah.
I'll have one of my portfolio company meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's six of us, and we're here in my Zoom room. And then 15 minutes later, they go, and another group comes in, and they just pass through my room all day, all morning long.
Yeah.
That's how we do it. And it used to be the conference room, at our old office, and now it's on Zoom.
Yeah. So, what type of services can they provide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me get back to that. So linked VA now, and the importance of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a business network. I started using it in 2008. I don't think it had been around too long, a couple of years when I started using it. And at the time, I really didn't know what to think of it. I was making a career transition from one market to another. So I thought it was a good idea to create a profile. And at the time, there were like 100,000, no, more than that, but probably a couple of million people on the platform. And I looked at it at that time as it's my virtual resume. It's just my CV. This is who I am. This is where I studied. These are the jobs I've had, and that it was potentially a place that I could collaborate, look for other people in my field. More importantly, where people could find me. And if they had questions or looking for my expertise or wanted to buy my products and services, it was a place to potentially do business. Today, 2024, there are over 1 billion people on LinkedIn. So that is literally 1 in 7, human beings on the planet are on LinkedIn. And so The one thing that's so true, though, about LinkedIn, when you compare it to all other social channels, is it has remained pure to the idea that it is the place to do business first. There is some social aspects because you can direct message and you endorse and so on and so forth, but it really is business first. It's business first, and yet the Pew, a think tank out here in the US, did a study a few months back, or actually it was late last year, and they basically identified that only 3% of LinkedIn users are adept, that they're actually using it the way it was intended, the way it is designed to be used. So that means 97% of people, 29 out of 30, are basically know LinkedIn is important, probably have a profile, but they're not really doing anything with it. They're not getting outputs. It's not a predictable place for them to do business, and don't have a full grasp of what the potential liabilities are if you're not paying attention to your LinkedIn profile.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied that research. I went to a couple of really large trade shows, and I had an epiphany because at the time I had LinkedIn automation software that we utilized internally, and we had it assigned to all of our portfolio companies, and LinkedIn had just been part of our SOP for all of our businesses to do business development and to create opportunities and connections. And so I took my internal SOP, what we do every day for our own businesses, and turned that into a business and service that I can do for others. And so that's how Linked VA Now was birthed. The idea was the general entrepreneur is too busy with their existing core business to spend the appropriate amount of time on their own LinkedIn profile, nurturing and harvesting leads from their network. And so my team with Linked VA Now is able to do that for a very nominal fee. They're able to connect with your profile and basically work it on a daily basis so that you can focus only on the outputs, whether it's leads or connections or proposals or whatever the end game is for you.
I'd love to sign up.
Okay. Sold. Well, one thing we are doing, Nicolette, for your viewers and listeners is linkedvanow.com is offering a free profile audit. So the beginning of our process with someone like yourself would be to look at your LinkedIn profile objectively, and then based on 8 different characteristics, give you our feedback. Then that feedback becomes the basis for some changes that you can make on your own or we can make together. We also, in addition to the audit, will deliver a fully articulated guide for how to improve your LinkedIn profile. And then we offer a consultation, of course, with one of our account managers so they can tell you more about the feedback you need and then tell you more about our service. When you think about what one would invest into something like this, I mean, we charge $697 US per month for this service. And so if you think about that type of an investment, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to hire any type of assistant to do any meaningful work for you for that relatively small amount of money. So most agencies that do this kind of work charge $3,000 to $4,000 US per month. So we come in at a fraction of that. And the reason I'm able to do that is because I already have a team. My team was assembled to work for me and my projects, and it's infinitely scalable. And as we grow our customer base for Linked VA Now, we just add and train more team members.
And this works for any entrepreneurs, any type of business that's looking to.
Yeah,
Okay.
we do a lot. We do business with a ton of coaches and
Okay.
trainers.
Okay.
We do a ton of business. Yeah, we do a ton of business with financial services professionals, insurance, all manner of sales teams. So it's funny. We even have some nonprofits who are looking to raise money for their, cause. So they did it successfully. We haven't had too many, situations where a customer has come in and we've not delivered. There are some campaigns that the customer is getting 30, 40 leads a week, very high volume. Others are a lot less than that. The more stringent, the more restrictive the target is, the audience is smaller, and so it takes longer to build a critical mass of leads. Like we have some customers in biotechnology, so they're looking for like very specific people who do a particular job title, and nobody else. And so, in that case, I know there's one customer where the typical audience is going to be in the hundreds of thousands, and in this case, it's like 577 people in the Western U.S. So it's going to take time to get to those specific targets. I always encourage the teams to tell our customers, broaden the audience
Yeah.
so that you're getting into conversations. Try not to be too restrictive, and then you dial it in. Not
Mm-hmm.
such a small target that it's almost impossible to hit, and then try to broaden out. Start wide, come into focus, because there is where you're going to get a process and a flow, so that our lead flow will complement whatever you're doing in terms of your pre-existing system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, do you also serve customers outside of US or just
Oh
the
yeah,
US?
all over the world. Yeah, I think
Brilliant.
we're on every continent except
Yeah.
Antarctica.
Maybe, who knows? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, we
all
definitely need
scientists
to.
down there. All nonprofit scientists. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think we have a huge audience down there, but no, we have customers in Asia, Australia, Middle East, Europe, South America, North America, of course. So
Mhm.
all over the world. Our team is, in the pocket working US time zone business hours. But the way our system is built is we have software that is running 24/7. So there's going to be constant outputs, and
Mhm.
then the team will get in at the beginning of their shifts and they will channel the outputs where they need to go. And then one of the features of our service is we create a weekly report that is sent to each one of our customers, so they get a very clearly delineated accounting of what transpired during the week prior in terms of the activity on their LinkedIn profile and the number of qualified leads.
Wow. Wow. Yes. We have to connect after the interview.
Correct.
Yes. So, Charles, what was your journey in the space of venture capital?
So we knew we had the successful exit to a private equity. And
Mhm.
at the time, we knew we wanted to create an environment for a handful of projects we were interested in, invested in. And so we created a venture studio model. And what that is to say that we're not just check writers who write a check to invest in a startup, but we also participate in the value creation in that startup. So
Mhm.
my background, for example, is revenue generation sales. So I typically will get involved almost as like a fractional chief revenue officer, sales officer, to advocate to the portfolio companies in our venture studio best processes for setting up their sales organization, sales teams. We
Studio.
also have,
Wait, when you say
go ahead.
studio, it's like media to me. It's not
It,
related to media,
a
right?
studio is, well, when you think studio, you think creative, right? Creation.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
creation.
that's what it is. It's creation,
Ah,
creating the companies. We're not
right.
just, a typical venture capital firm
Mm,
is a pile of money
yeah,
that is described out, and then some of the partners might sit on boards,
yeah.
right? But that's it. There's typically
Hmm.
not a lot of actual work going on. In our case, we not only, in my case, will help with sales organization. We also do engineering. We have
Hmm.
centralized customer support and service. So we are a lot of things to our portfolio companies, and because we're working alongside of founders, that's the studio element of what we do.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Wow,
Mhm.
you are an important man. About to be an important man and as I step into this next space. Yes. Okay, so what should a VC anticipate in terms of the upsides of investing in any startup companies versus the risk that they should be ready to take prior to investing in startups?
Well, venture capital today, or fundraising, like, nowadays you have crowdfunding now.
Mm.
You have companies that don't have to go the traditional venture capital route. If they're like a founder trying to raise money, they can go to a platform like Republic or Start Engine, and they can just start raising money at $100 a pop from the investors. They don't have to go to pitch contests and roadshow and present to venture firms. It's been fairly democratized in terms of, if a founder wants to raise money, there are many avenues, through which to do it. Now, that's on the fundraising founder looking to raise money side. If somebody in your audience is looking themselves to invest in companies, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I would just say that in startups, particularly in the technology sector, failure is abundant. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Most companies fail.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to invest in a startup, uh, it cannot be money that you are counting on. Right? High risk. It's
Mm.
very high risk. Now, there are stories of, somebody invested $5,000 in their neighbor's startup, and then that startup got acquired by Microsoft, right? And that 5,000 was worth, $1 million. And that has happened. I know people that very scenario it's happened to them, where they get 100x return on their investment. But those are 100% the exceptions and not the rule. So my general advice to people interested in exploring investing in startups: invest in companies, technology that are within industries right? That
Mm.
you have
Yeah.
some, like, sort of common DNA with.
Mm.
Because if you don't know anything about agritech,
FNB.
I'm just saying, like, agritech, agricultural technology,
Right, right.
like, then you probably shouldn't invest in that company. Not at its
Mm.
startup stage. If it's a NASDAQ or, stock exchange traded company, there's all sorts of protections and regulations that exist at
Yeah.
that level. But if you're looking to get involved in an early stage startup, it should really be in a field you have some familiarity with. And if not that, then you certainly have a familiarity and knowledge of the founders. They're
Mm.
people whose character you can attest to. Getting involved with strangers in industries you know nothing about, it's a very risky proposition, because you have no lens, you have no insight into, are things going well or are things going poorly. So I generally wouldn't advocate, that average folks take those kinds of risks. If you've heard all that and you still want to invest, then I would recommend that you check out. There's two platforms in particular. I mentioned them earlier. One is called Start Engine, and the other is called Republic. They're both, North America based, but I do think that there's global access in terms of investing. And
Mm-hmm.
what these are crowdfunding. So they raise from investors that are typically putting 100, 200, $500, relatively small amounts,
Mm-hmm.
into the projects. I mean, there's another platform you've probably heard of called Kickstarter.
Yeah.
This is more common for, like, a physical product. Like, I created the ultimate stress ball, right?
Aha.
So I put it on Kickstarter and pre-sell my inventory, and I fundraise that way. So it's sort of like Kickstarter, again, intangible. You're just buying, a piece of stock in the company for the hopes that at a later date there's an exit and it's worth something. And
Wow.
this is a
That's
simpler
possible.
and less risky way for everyday folks to get involved with venture, to get involved
Yeah.
with startup investing.
Because the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to VC, it's like you need to have an X amount of money. And then
Yes.
most people get that's the first thing. And then when they see that, they back away, they back off. And it's like, this is not for me. I'm going to stick to my 9 to 5 and just be ordinary. Although some of them might have that, I don't know, they have this vision that I want to be a part of something, but I just don't know how to start. And everywhere I look, people are not doing it.
Mm.
Well, I hope from this conversation, some of them might, reach out and start going after whatever it is that they want, their dreams. At least this
Mhm.
is what I do. What I do. What is next for you, Charles?
I'm very focused on our current portfolio, and
Mm-hmm.
so we're not really taking on new ventures. I don't think for the balance of the calendar year. We're very focused on scaling our existing projects. And as far as acquisitions and exits, I mean, that's constantly happening in the background. So
Wow.
um,
for
that
your
is,
for your businesses or
yeah.
for your clients.
So it. every single day I'm in due diligence, either selling a company or buying a company. So part
No.
chunk of my day is staring at somebody else's spreadsheets or explaining my own
Financial
to somebody.
statements.
Yeah, and so a lot of data rooms and things like that. So that's a constant presence in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my experience with exits and acquisitions is that most deals don't happen. So
Mm-hmm.
you're in the middle of it, you've put months into it, and then the deal dies, for whatever reason. Typically, there's just an angle to the business that the buyers are not comfortable with, or sellers sometimes change the terms, midstream. And that happens often, especially if they have, successful, you could be in like, you could have like a signed letter of intent to acquire a company for X, but they just had a record quarter.
Mm,
you know, we don't want to sell it for that. We want to sell it for more, and you
yeah.
may not be willing to pay that more. So
Mm-hmm.
that also happens. So that's always happening. But Linked VA now is a major initiative. You said earlier we launched it in 2022. That's not quite accurate. It was actually
Okay.
October 23
Ah,
that we
okay.
that we launched it. Now the
Right.
technology, the underlying technology that runs it was a software only platform that we ran for 3 years. Linked
Mm,
VA now is just the iteration that has the full service model. So
right.
tech's been
Right.
around for almost 5 years, but this iteration has been around. I
The
think we're going
team
to
was fully set up in 2023. Right. That's what you
the
mean.
well, where our internal team is like available to be hired, right,
Ah,
for
right.
customers. Because
Okay.
prior to that, it was just an internal system and an internal team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Wow. Thank you. So I just want to bring that thing that you mentioned just earlier, a few seconds ago, on the part where you spend most of your day, 80%, if not, I don't know what's the percentage, looking at financial statements, NAs, due diligence, work, and then not all of them, at least a percentage does not get, doesn't get through. How do you stay motivated to continue doing what you do?
Mm.
And this is pivoting to my self-worth question, because my podcast talks a lot about self-worth. And funny enough, the question that I have for you right now, it's about imposter syndrome. So
Mhm.
this is fitting very perfectly. So the question for you, Charles, imposter syndrome is a common challenge that affects people in various fields. So if you can, pivot it back to your case. So how can one overcome IS and recognize their true value and capabilities?
I think IS happens when the person in question is finding themselves in a position where they have to improvise a lot. You don't have the answer.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
rather
yeah.
than so
The
rather
resilience,
yeah,
the
so
mental strength.
change your setup. Somebody hits you with a question that you truly don't know the answer. Respectfully say that, not
Yeah.
talk around it and try to figure out clever ways to still look smart. And
Mm-hmm.
be authentic. That's the key motivating factor. It's sort of like in my situation. I built this great new company that's growing gangbusters, and cash flowing and all that good stuff. But it's not by accident. It was an internal system I had already built for myself. So it was like a very selfish thing. So when I talk to people about how important this product with Link VA now is, it's not hard to be authentic because I've been living it for years and years and years. So it's who I am. So
Preach.
yeah,
Yes.
it's my authentic self. It's not some concoction creation that I just
And
made
you have
for
to
the
put a
market.
mask on this morning. Okay,
Yeah.
today I'm gonna
Yeah.
be this, just to
And
sell it.
people feel like imposters when they don't have the answers, and they're afraid to say they don't have the answer. That's the key, I think, mental position they find themselves. And then they're reaching, right? They're reaching. I gotta say something smart here, and then they're afraid to
Yes.
look vulnerable. That's where it becomes an issue. I think.
Wow. 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 I love that. I love that. I stand by that truly and really, because my number one mantra is to be yourself. Be authentic, because you're one of one.
Right.
You're not one in a million. You're one of one. Thank you, Charles. So, what is your heart's greatest wish?
I've always wanted to create generational wealth for my family because, I came from, a good background, but, not a ton of means. And, I went to public schools and, so one of the first things I was able to do for my oldest child is, send her to a private education. And
Wow.
she's actually about to graduate from college in 2 weeks. So,
Oh,
yeah, big deal.
congratulations.
And so
Big
creating
deal.
opportunities for my family, that's number one,
Hmm.
100%. Now, beyond my own four walls, I truly want to positively affect the entrepreneurial experience for, individual entrepreneurs because it can be a very lonely existence. And
Yes.
so much of what I do between my work in the restaurant industry, small business, retail, what we're doing with LinkedIn, all of it centers around entrepreneurs, small business, because we want to be advocates. And so if I can help an entrepreneur normalize their business situation, take a vacation with their family from
Yeah,
their business, that's what I want to do.
exactly. Because that's the very thing that got you into business because you want more time with your family or do other things that you want to do.
Sure,
Yeah.
100%.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Again, you are an important man. Yes. Do you have a mantra that you live by?
The best is yet to come. You
The
know what that
best is yet to
does is it doesn't allow you to be satisfied with where you are today, no matter how much you've achieved. And you always have something to look forward to. If the best is yet to come, then I don't even know, how good can it get?
come. Wow. Yes. Thank you.
Mhm.
What keeps you up at night? Is there anything that keeps you up at night or do you sleep well?
No, I sleep pretty well. I've got a portfolio of companies, and I would be lying to you if I said they were always doing amazing. I mean, it
Hmm.
seems no matter how hard I work, try, plan, they're not all firing on all cylinders. Like one is
Yeah.
going great, the other one, oh, what happened over here? And so that stuff keeps me awake at night. And obviously there's a lot of craziness in the world. The geopolitical areas that are unstable. I mean, I'm very concerned about those sorts of things because we are one humanity. We're all connected, and so it doesn't matter if it's on the other side of the planet. It's going to affect what's happening in your backyard. And so I think those things keep me awake, to a certain degree. And just the, as I said earlier, as I work pretty hard, I try to work smart, and not all days are created equal. Some days I feel a great sense of accomplishment. Other days I go down on my computer and then I look up and it's already the evening, and I'm wondering to myself, what did I actually get done today? I
Mm.
have days like that.
Mm.
So those that can make for some restless nights.
Well, thank you for being honest and vulnerable. Really appreciate that. Okay, Charles, if you could create a quote right now for you to leave to the audience listening and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
Quote. Let's see. Well, I had a pretty good one there, right? The best is yet.
Yeah, that was good. That was
That's
good.
pretty good because that truly is my everyday. Because it just keeps me striving, wanting to do more, wanting to be better, and it's a good mantra when you're raising a family,
Yeah.
right? That way, the kids are never satisfied. They ran a very fast race, but they can be
Hmm.
faster.
Yeah.
So I really do believe that. There are some other ones bouncing around in my head, that are important to me, but that is probably chief among them,
Hmm. The
and
best
something I
is
would
yet to
want
come.
everybody to know and be able to meditate on.
The best is yet to come. So, how can people reach out to you, Charles?
Yeah, well, as one might expect, I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
My parent company, our venture studio, is berelentless.com. The company, as my shirt says, relentless.
Yeah, I love the bull.
Yeah,
The
you,
logo. I love it.
you won't stop.
The
Um,
Yeah, it won't stop.
berelentless.com. And then if they're interested in the LinkedIn side of things, I'm sure you'll share the link, but linkedvanow.com is a good place for just about any professional to get some honest feedback about their profile and how
Mhm.
it is, how it is faring compared to the market, and get some objective feedback.
All right. Awesome. So, thank you so much, Charles. And there you have it, guys. You heard it
Mhm.
from the person himself, Charles
Mhm.
Carencer.
Yes.
Before we close off, I'd like to thank you, Charles, personally for the work that you're doing for the world and for advancing every step of the way despite the challenges, creating trails for those that will come after you. This has been that one podcast with that one controversial name, You're Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. If you find yourself thinking that you're worthless, you're not alone. But more importantly, ask yourself level deeper. If I'm worthless, then why the heck am I here? It is because your soul has chosen to be here energetically, all the way from the ethers. And for that reason itself, you are worthy and you are enough. This has been Charles Curran, sir, guest of the day, and Nick Nieras, your host, signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.